Hi guys, this is David and welcome to another video, and this one is about the PlayStation Store shutdown. It should come as no surprise to anybody that the PlayStation Store is shutting down this summer, and it is now a mad scramble to go through and find the best RPGs available and download them now while you still can, and while they're still cheap, because a lot of the RPGs available digitally on these platforms are extremely expensive, so you want to get them now while you still can. RPGsite.net has a fantastic comprehensive list of every single RPG available on these online PlayStation networks. And because we have roughly 25 years of RPG history here, I thought that it might be helpful to you guys if I was here and just kind of walked you through all the different RPGs available for download. The vast majority of these RPGs are pretty good. There are some of them that I've never heard of, and if I'd never heard of them, more than likely they're not all that good. So let's just go ahead and start going on through this list. This should be kind of an interesting, fun little video right here. So here we have the original RPGs available on the PSN, on the PlayStation Network. Starting off the list, we have Alundra. All these games, it says right here, can be played on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation Portable, or PlayStation Vita, if you have those. So Alundra is the first game on our list. That is essentially a Zelda clone, a Landstalker clone. It's very, very difficult, though. It has some brutally difficult puzzles. But if you are a Zelda fan, an action RPG fan, even Secret of Mana fan, or even Soul Blazer, you might like this game. It does involve an elf kind of diving into people's dreams and helping them out that way. It is highly recommended to play it, although it can be frustrating with its difficulty. Then we have the Arctalad trilogy. This was released as a collection physically. Each game is a tactical RPG. If you're into grid-based tactical games such as Final Fantasy Tactics or even like things like Disgaea, you may like this series of games. Personally, I liked Arctalad 1 and 2 much more than 3. There was some sort of like guild-based system in Arctalad 3. It just seemed to pad things out quite a bit. So wasn't really a fan of that, but Arctalad 1 and 2 I would highly recommend. Arctalad 1 is relatively short though, lasting only about 10 hours, whereas Arctalad 2 and 3 will take you much longer. Battle Hunter, I've never heard of. Breath of Fire 4. I like the Breath of Fire series. I am a fan of the Breath of Fire series. I know that I've ragged on this game before, but if you haven't played it, play it. It is a good traditional JRPG. I would definitely recommend grabbing Breath of Fire 4. And I'm just going to be moving around this little thing so these ads don't pop up right here. So yeah, definitely Breath of Fire 4. Chrono Cross is another one that I've ragged on before, and I do have my issues with it. However, if you haven't played it, play it. It is worth a playthrough no matter what issues I have with Chrono Cross, with its bland storytelling, music that puts you to sleep, too many ridiculous characters. I would still highly recommend buying it and playing through it. It is definitely worth a playthrough. Final Fantasy Origins is a remake of Final Fantasy 1 and 2. Personally, I would recommend probably playing a different remake of Final Fantasy 1 and 2. There are so many different remakes. I think that the PSP remakes are probably the best ones to play. But if this is the only way that you have available to play those games, I would definitely download those and play them. Final Fantasy 1, though, is much better than Final Fantasy 2, so do keep that in mind. Then we have Final Fantasy Tactics. This is the great granddaddy of many a tactical RPG. It is fantastic. I would definitely recommend downloading Final Fantasy Tactics. Grid-based battle system, very good story. It is fantastic. It takes a page out of Tactics Ogre's book, and yeah, a lot of fun. Front Mission 3 is also another tactical RPG. You use mech battling in it, so if you want more of a futuristic tactical turn-based RPG, check out Front Mission 3. If you want more medieval swords and sorcery, check out Final Fantasy Tactics. Legend of Dragoon is another game that I've kind of ragged on before for a good reason, but I will say it is worth a playthrough. It is, it's a game. It's worth a playthrough. I would play it. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing ever, but it is a traditional turn-based RPG that will last you at least a good 60 to 80 hours, so you'll definitely get some bang for your buck there. The Mega Man Legends games are a whole lot of fun. It's kind of like an open-world Mega Man RPG. It is a blast to play through those two games, and they're really quirky, a lot of funny dialogue in those games. I would highly recommend the Mega Man Legends games. This is some sort of Japanese language game on an English store. I don't care about that. Parasite Eve 1 and 2. I know a lot of people like these games. They're like horror RPGs, kind of like with a tactical combat thing going on. Personally, I'm not really a fan of them, but if you are into more horror RPGs, things like SMT or something like that, you may want to pick them up. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment lives up to its name because it is nothing but punishment to actually play it. Personally, I would skip it. I know that there are some die-hard, rabid Persona fans out there, though, and if you were one of those people, you might want to grab Persona 2 and see where the series kind of began. Me, personally, I would skip it. Sayuki Journey West. This one was a pleasant surprise to me whenever I first picked it up way back when in high school. This is a story of a, let me move this stupid ad. This is a story of a guy who goes west. He basically travels through China, over to India, and he meets various Hindu gods, and it's a tactical, turn-based JRPG set in ancient Far East. I thoroughly enjoyed Sayuki Journey West. I would definitely recommend that. That's up there with like Final Fantasy Tactics. Is a very, very good tactical RPG. I would even go so far as to say that it is a hidden gem on the PlayStation. Suikoden 1 and 2, I don't know what else I can say about these games except that they are fantastic. 108 Stars of Destiny. The first Suikoden will take you anywhere between 10 to 15 hours. Suikoden 2 is a much, much longer game. Both of them I would highly recommend, some of the best games on the system. Threads of Fate, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. It's an action RPG, kind of like a side-scrolling action RPG. And you have two different heroes, and you go around, and each hero has their own different powers and everything else like that. I'm going to leave this ad up because it doesn't obscure anything. That's a nice ad to have right there. Perfect. What was I talking? Threads of Fate. Action RPG, two different heroes. It can be a lot of fun, but it can also be extraordinarily frustrating with Chapter 3, where you just want to break your game and throw it at the window because it is impossible to beat. Yeah, maybe if you have a lot more patience than I do, you might like some Threads of Fate. Vagrant Story. This is a game that I could never really get into. Vagrant Story, I wanted to like it, I tried to get into it. The combat is so obtuse and so convoluted. It's an action RPG. I just couldn't deal with it. You have to like select different weapons to hit different weaknesses on every single frickin' monster. It takes forever. Not a fan. Wild Arms 1 and 2. Buy them. Very, very good games. They're set in Filgaia, which is kind of like the old Wild West. Traditional turn-based JRPG goodness. Definitely pick up Wild Arms 1 and 2. Also, Xenogears. Xenogears, the reputation precedes itself. Definitely go ahead and pick up Xenogears as well. That is another traditional turn-based JRPG. They are fantastic. Here we have some PlayStation 2 RPGs on the PSN. Let's go through them. Grandia 3. This is probably the worst Grandia. If you've played Grandia 1 and 2 and you like more of the same, play Grandia 3. If you're looking for a good story, you're not gonna find it here. Grandia 3 story falls off a cliff after the 10-hour mark, but the gameplay is still up there. It still has, its fun battle system, so that's always nice. Growlancer, Heritage of War. Growlancer is a kind of a little esoteric game. It is a it's a real-time strategy RPG with a really weird art style. But it's kind of like a love it or hate it type of game, and it uses a ring system for your weapons, and instead of hitting grids, you kind of hit various circles on the map and everything. It's interesting, and if you like tactical turn-based combat, pick up Growlancer. That is an interesting one. Grimoire, not really a fan. Yeah, I would probably skip that one, I'm sorry, not really a fan. La Pucelle Tactics. This is kind of another little gem. This is obviously a turn-based tactical JRPG. It stars a female lead, which is interesting, and the story is very lighthearted, a lot of fun. I want to say it's like a spin-off of Rhapsody, a musical adventure. It is really good. River King, not really my thing. That's more of a sim game. I'm not really a fan of those, so I would skip that. As far as the Digital Devil Saga games, 1 and 2, I would definitely pick up both of these games. This is SMT meets Final Fantasy X. Complete with, you have your own party members. You don't have to do any kind of monster recruiting. You have kind of like a sphere grid upgrade system with your characters. There's also a, you know how in battle in Final Fantasy X you can like kind of see the turn order at the top of the screen? Same sort of thing right here. And if you buy the first game, you better buy the second game because they are direct sequels to one another. Definitely pick up the Digital Devil Saga games. They are as far as I'm concerned, they're the best that the SMT series has ever offered. They are my favorite SMT games. Persona 3 and 4. People like Persona. I know that a lot of people do, and they say it's great, and it's just the best series ever. Personally, me, not really a fan of Persona. If you like life sims and games that you can kind of get lost in, and games that you have to sit there and read a guide for to figure out the most efficient path, then yeah, Persona's up your alley. For me though, I'm not really a fan, especially of Persona 3. I like Persona 4 a little bit better than Persona 3, at least it didn't have random dungeons. Here we have some more SMT games. I actually have purchased both of these games, but I never really got into them. I purchased them because it had a collector's edition way back when, and I never actually opened them and used them because I'm not really a fan of SMT in general. But I know that there's a big following out there, and if you are an SMT fan, hey, pick it up. Me, it's not exactly my cup of tea. It's too dark. For me, I prefer my JRPGs a lot more lighthearted. Stella Deus, The Gate of Eternity. I've heard of this, but I've only heard bad things, so I personally would skip it. Suikoden 3 and 4 are probably the two worst Suikodens. I would pick up Suikoden 1 and 2 well before I picked up 3 and 4. Suikoden 3 has its fair share of issues, let me tell you, from the weird character design to the combat system where you have to like link characters together, so you have 6 characters but you really only have 3. And then Suikoden 4, it's short, you're on a boat, you only have 4 characters. If you like Suikoden 1, 2, and 5, pick up 3 and 4, but definitely if you have to choose, I would choose 1 and 2 over 3 and 4. Okay. Let's move on to the PlayStation 3's games on the PSN. Now we're going to be getting to some kind of weirder games where I'm not really sure what most of them are because they're just kind of like, they're kind of odd. A lot of the times whenever there is a digital release of something, I completely ignore it, such as this Battle Princess of Arcadia's. I have no idea what that is. This Are No Surge, Ode to an Unborn Star. I think that is an offshoot of the Art Nelico series. So if you are a fan of those and kind of diving into girls to do their cosmospheres and that weird stuff, hey, have at it, more power to you. Me, I won't pass. Classy Heroes 2G. This is from Gage and Works. It is a first-person dungeon crawler, kind of like Wizardry. It's kind of like if Wizardry was made by a JRPG developer. You might want to check out Class of Heroes 2G if you are into first-person dungeon crawlers like that. Personally, me, not really a fan of first-person dungeon crawlers. We have the Disgaea games. Their reputation precedes them. Tactical turn-based fun. To me, it's a little bit more wacky than games that I would personally like. I tend to steer clear of the Disgaea series just because of that wackiness. The humor does not, I don't appreciate it. I'll just put it that way. Drakengard 3. I'm not a fan of the Drakengard series in general. It's an action RPG. I've always found them to be very, very underwhelming. Basically the entire series. I'm kind of shocked that it even got up to a third game, to be quite honest with you. Speaking of games that I'm shocked that exist are the Hyperdimension Neptunia games. I know that there's a fan base out there for this idea, a factory stuff. Not a fan, personally. I would pass. More digital-only junk. I've never even heard of this stuff. Rune Factory, Tides of Destiny. I've heard good things about Rune Factory. It's basically a combat, more RPG-focused Harvest Moon, and I've heard that Rune Factory Tides of Destiny is the best Rune Factory, so you may want to pick that one up. Tales of Grace's F. Really, really good Tales of Grace, or Tales of game. Involves kind of time travel. You have a childhood arc, an adult arc, a future arc, kind of following these same characters throughout the course of their life. Has this really in-depth title system. The game comes highly recommended. This is one of my favorite Tales games, actually. Then we have Tales of Symphonia Chronicles, which is Tales of Symphonia and Dawn of the New World packed up together without that stupid Wii controls that plagued Dawn of the New World the first time around. So, if you have no other way of playing these games, I would definitely pick them up. This grouping of games is definitely worth it. The Tales series in general, you really can't go wrong with it. Same thing with Tales of Xillia and Tales of Xillia 2. Tales goodness cannot go wrong with it. Xillia is unique in that you have a choice of two different heroes, and Tales of Xillia 2 is a direct sequel to Xillia 1. There is some sort of debt system, which bugs a lot of people, and it also has a silent protagonist, which I can also see bugging some people, but me personally, I liked the Xillia games. Then we also have some kind of weirdo games right here. Tears to Tiara, The Awakened Fate Ultimatum, The Guide of Fate Paradox. I remember playing this game. This game sucks. This game is like a rogue dungeon crawler thing. Not a fan. Trinity Souls of Zil-Ol is kind of like a Dynasty Warriors game. If you're a fan of that, what is it, like the Mushu combat they call it? You might want to pick up Trinity Souls of Zil-Ol, or like something like Dragon Quest Heroes. You might like that. I remember putting about 70 or so hours into that. Vandal Hearts Flames of Judgment. I like the first Vandal Hearts, the other Vandal Hearts, not so much. It's a strategy, tactical, turn-based grid combat game. If you liked Vandal Hearts 1, you may want to pick it up, but honestly, the best Vandal Hearts is the first one. Yakuza Dead Souls. As far as I was concerned, the only JRPG Yakuza game was Like a Dragon. Wasn't even aware. But this would be an open world type game, kind of like Shenmue or something like that if you're into that sort of stuff. I personally am not. These are the PSP RPGs available on the PlayStation Network. Adventures to Go. This is an interesting one. This is kind of like an action RPG. So, but it's kind of quirky. It's really short. It can be pretty fun. We're going to skip over games that I've never heard of because, again, if I've never heard of them, they're probably kind of trash. Just saying. Brandish Dark Reverend. I've heard good things about this game, but I was so burned and I hated the first Brandish so much on the SNES, I never picked this one up. I believe that this is actually a remake of that first Brandish on the SNES. But again, I was so burned by it and I hated it so much. I still, 20-something years later, probably 30 years later at this point, I am still sour about it, so I did not pick it up. Breath of Fire 3. Cannot go wrong with Breath of Fire. This is probably everybody's favorite Breath of Fire game. It's not my favorite Breath of Fire game, but it's probably the masses' favorite Breath of Fire game, so you might want to pick that one up too. Kind of like Tales of Graces. You start with a childhood and then you move into adulthood, so that's kind of fun. Clayton. This is an RPG. Again, kind of these weird, Disgaea-esque, wacky, humory games. I'm not really a fan of them. Class of Heroes 2, we've already talked about that. This is the dungeon crawling game. I would pick up the 2G version rather than just the 2 version. The G version is just better if you're into a dungeon crawler like this. Personally, me, I would skip it. Dissidia. This is kind of a Final Fantasy fighting game. If you're into that, it's kind of like Smash Brothers meets Final Fantasy. It can be interesting. I don't know if I'd really call it an RPG. Dragonese Aria could be one of the worst RPGs I've ever played in my entire life. I would go so far as to say it is completely unplayable. Avoid it at all costs. It is absolute garbage. Here we have Final Fantasy 1 and 2, but they're only available on the European PSN, so for my European friends, you can grab the best versions of Final Fantasy 1 and 2. And then here we have Final Fantasy IV, the complete collection. This is easily the best version of Final Fantasy IV. It has the base game. It also has the added elements from the Game Boy Advance version, such as choosing your party at the end of the game, the Lunar Ruins. It has an intermission, and it also has the what is it called? The After Years version. I was not a fan of the After Years, but it is there here in the complete collection. If you do want to pick that up, I highly recommend Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions is a really cool remake of the original Final Fantasy Tactics. If you're a fan of tactical turn-based combat in any way, shape, or form, definitely pick this up. We've spoken about Growlancer before, so yeah, you can buy it here, you could buy it on the, buy it here, buy it there. Either way, buy it. Gungear, not a fan. This is one of those Sting kind of Department Heaven games. It looks like a bullet hell, and it's just like, I don't know, it has like that, I think it was like an offshoot of like Riviera the Promised Land, which was a big thing, and all these people went on about Riviera the Promised Land. It was the best frickin' game ever on the Game Boy Advance, and no, I hated it then, hate it now, and I hate everything associated with it. I don't know why it was ever so popular. Hexus Force, one of the best games on the PSP. You got a choice of 2 different heroes. You have a planet that's tidally locked. One side is eternal light, one side is eternal darkness. It's a whole lot of fun. The 2 intertwining stories, definitely highly recommend Hexus Force. Joan of Arc, another highly recommended game. This is tactical turn-based combat from level 5. Gorgeous graphics, great story, great voice acting. Oh, fantastic, fantastic game. Tells the story, of course, of Joan of Arc, but if there was magic and evil people and demonic possession and all that kind of stuff, really good game. Lunar Silver Star Harmony. Apparently, this is the best version of Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, with some quality of life improvements. If you've never been able to play Lunar, pick this up. Completely worth it. Manichemia Student Alliance. This is part of the Atelier series. But there's not really all that much crafting, thank God. This is more combat and talking amongst your party and getting to know them and everything. This is a fine game. I would definitely pick up the Manichemia series. I really liked those. I never really was one to get into the Monster Hunter games. Mamana AR Chronicle is complete garbage, trash, dog shit. Do not buy it. More junk that I'm skipping over. Here we have some more Personas. I've talked about that before. I'm not really a fan. If you are, pick it up. Summon Night 5, it did have a very limited physical release. I personally got the physical release because I wanted to support Gaijin Works and Victor Island and all that. I kind of am regretting it because Summon Night 5 sucks. It is a turn-based, tactical game, grid-based, but it is incredibly easy and incredibly boring. I would not recommend buying it. I would recommend buying Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, though. This is fantastic. Precursor to Final Fantasy Tactics. It's a remake of the first Tactics Ogre. It is great. Third Birthday. That is essentially Parasite Eve 3. I wasn't really a fan of 1 or 2, so I wouldn't be picking up 3. And I've also heard that it is god-awful. So even if you're a fan of 1 and 2, you're probably going to hate 3. So I would skip on that. Valkyria Chronicles. I heard good things, tried it out myself, not a fan. Again, it's kind of like real-time combat, and it's brutally difficult. If you thought that Fire Emblem was hard, you ain't seen nothing till you pick up Valkyria Chronicles. That game is hard. Here we have White Knight Chronicles Origins. Not a fan. I felt like they were very, very boring. Both White Knight Chronicles were very boring, kind of samey. Not a fan. Wild Arms XF. I like this game. I know that it got a bad rep because it's a tactical turn-based game. Rather than a traditional JRPG like all the other Wild Arms games, it uses hexes instead of squares to move on through. And for some of the maps, you do have to be a particular job in order to beat the map. But it's really nothing that you can't handle. If you're into the Wild Arms series or just tactical turn-based combat, I would highly recommend picking up Wild Arms XF. These are Vita RPGs available on the PSN. We have Adventures of Mana. That is the remake of Final Fantasy Adventure, which is the very first Mana game, or Seiken Densetsu game. If you haven't been able to play Sword of Mana or anything else like that, Final Fantasy Adventure, then I would pick up Adventures of Mana because it is worth a playthrough. It could be kind of dated by our standards, but it is worth a playthrough. The vast majority of these games on the Vita, as far as I'm concerned, are complete garbage. Pretty much from here all through here-ish, except for maybe Disgaea 3. This other stuff is just kind of junk. But Muramasa Rebirth, that is an action RPG. Really beautiful. It's a remake of Muramasa that was originally released for the Wii. I would definitely pick that one up. And then the last one that I would pick up on the Vita, and the last game that we're going to cover here on this list, is Tales of Hearts R. Again, Tales game, can't go wrong. It was actually told that Tales of Hearts R was the series creator's favorite Tales game. So if that tells you anything about the quality of that game, there you go. Also, it is the game that I purchased the Vita for. So yeah, I would definitely pick up Tales of Hearts R. So let's just go back through this list real fast, and I'm going to hit the highlights of the games that I would grab if these ads ever go away. I would get Tales of Hearts R. Like, if I could only purchase, like the minimum amount of purchase, like, this is like the best of the best of the best, Tales of Hearts R, I would definitely pick up. Wild Arms XF. Yeah, definitely grab that one as well. Lunar. If you haven't played Lunar in any other way, pick up Lunar Silver Star Harmony, pick up Joan of Arc, pick up Hexus Force. Pick up Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection, and if you need to, Final Fantasy, at least get 1. 2, you can skip that, but at least get Final Fantasy 1. Grab Breath of Fire 3, that's a really nice game. And let's see. The Tales games, yeah. Xillia 2, Xillia, Symphonia Chronicles, Grace's F. Definitely grab as many Tales games as you possibly can. They are all definitely worth it. I would grab Suikoden 3 and 4. They are worth a playthrough. But again, I would say to get Suikoden 1 and 2 before getting 3 and 4. But those are worth a playthrough. So get Suikoden 3 and 4. I would get Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2. Just to check out and see what you like about the SMT series. If you've never been into the SMT series, check out Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2. They are a good gateway into the series. And now, here's the treasure trove, the PlayStation 1 RPGs. You want to get Xenogears, Wild Arms 2, Wild Arms, Suikoden 2, Suikoden, Sayuki Journey West, Mega Man Legends, Mega Man Legends 2, Final Fantasy Tactics unless you want the War of the Lion edition, Final Fantasy Origins unless you picked up Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the PSP, Chrono Cross if you haven't played that, worth a playthrough, Breath of Fire 4, I'd grab that as well, and then probably Alundra. So yeah, lots and lots and lots of good games here, lot of stuff to unpack. I hope that this video proved beneficial to you. Just me walking through these games with you guys. Let me know in the comments what games you are going to pick up for the PSN before it shuts down. And do you agree or disagree? Let me know in those comments as well. And have a good day.